This is the Self-Aware Leader Podcast. Now your host, Jason Rigby.
Right now, the eclipse is happening. Right this very moment. It's pretty wild, huh? When you think about it, Ring of Fire, I was watching the YouTube, NASA, live footage, all of that. And I began to think about eclipses and what it does. And they were talking about how it affects human physiology and evolutionary psychology, what that looks like when we look at an eclipse. And a lot of people back in the day used to think it was the end of the world. And even now, people are moved to tears. People get, their hair raises up on the back of their neck. It causes an evolutionary response even now. And I want us to think about that whenever we're trying to practice self-aware, whenever we're trying to be mindful, and then all of a sudden, these thousands and thousands of years of programming takes over and you do something stupid as a leader. And this is a prime example. This eclipse is a prime example of what can happen and how we can be triggered subconsciously and not even realize it because that imprint is there in our DNA from so long ago. It's the same as I talk about all the time when it comes to being chased by a cheetah in the savannah. You get that same feeling as being like preyed upon by a predator. We don't like snakes. We don't like spiders. We don't like these certain things to protect us. It's in our DNA. It's who we are. It's in our brain. So how do we overcome that? Well, first I want to kind of get into a little bit about understanding eclipses, and then we'll get into kind of more modern self-aware practices that we can deal with it. So we all know what eclipse is. It's a celestial splendor. Ancient myths, superstitions, modern day science has always tried to figure out this mystery, this intrigue that happens. I mean, it's a celestial event. We know that. We know that it's just an alignment of the earth, moon, and the sun, and it causes one to obstruct the other, light from the other. So we have a pretty advanced understanding, but there's also some crazy mystical fascination. And the psychological effects that can happen, they can cause a range of different responses from awe and wonder to fear and anxiety. Even now in people, you would think back in the old days, they'd be like, what the hell's happening? This is the end of oh my God, the sun's blotted out. We're all going to die. But the sudden darkening of the sky, it can still stir profound emotions and effects. We all have biological clocks. We know that. And this is so important to understand evolution and science, guys, so you can understand how you're thinking. This makes you more self-aware. This gives you knowledge to see how you react to things. Humans, like all organisms, have biological clocks. We have circadian rhythms that are turned to regular cycles of light and dark on our planet. This has been around since we've evolved. So when you have sudden darkness, it disrupts these rhythms. Now, we don't know what the long-term impacts of an eclipse is. We don't know what it does to us. But we do know the evolutionary impact that it's played in human culture, in beliefs, in practices. We do know that it has caused issues when it comes to religion. There's been religions, and then they've done certain things, sacrifice humans, to try to appease the gods. That has happened multiple times where it's like, oh, no, what's happening? Well, let's go sacrifice somebody real quick. And then the eclipse goes away and the sun comes back out and they're like, well, this is what we need to do. So we need to appease the gods and we need to do this. And then they create a schedule on how to sacrifice people and when they're going to sacrifice people. I mean, the Mayans went crazy about this, didn't they? These myths, legends, all from this historical event became huge and significant cultural points. And so it created, and you need to get this, in your belief system subconsciously, it created a cultural narrative and developed and shaped social structures, belief systems, and rituals. And that influences even now today. I heard somebody say the other day, it's just my Catholic guilt. Where does that come from? Is that real? No. It's just you were raised under a religious belief system. And if you're Catholic, I'm not trying to offend you. I know a lot of, and I've studied mystic Catholicism and appreciate it and understand it. I just 2 years ago, I was at the Vatican and I went to the Vatican Museum. So I'm not slamming any religion at all. I'm just saying you have to understand where your beliefs come from. That creates self-awareness. Oh, my great-grandparents, my grandparents, I lived here in this neighborhood. I was raised in this type of social status. So this created this prominent belief that was around. And in that prominent belief, I just took it as something for me to believe. And so I have no logical facts about it. This is what I believe. And this is kind of how I feel. But in leadership, that can get you in trouble. Big time. Because now you have a ton of other people on your team, in your business, that have all different types of beliefs. And not everyone needs to follow your belief. You need to respect other people's beliefs, right? And people get pissed off with this, especially leaders, and they always want to try to form and make everybody just like them. So they push their beliefs, they push their cultural norms that they feel is cultural norms that could be totally opposite from someone else. And you have this all the time. Somebody that was raised in Louisiana is totally different than somebody that's raised in LA, right? Than somebody that was raised in New York, somebody that was raised in Florida, or Texas, or Washington State, or Portland, Oregon. Totally different. Has nothing to do with the human. It's the way that they were raised in their beliefs. And when you understand this and can transcend this, then what you need to do is respect that human for who they are. Period. Period. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. You may disagree with them, but what are you disagreeing them from? Some beliefs that you had in your social culture, in your social evolution. And that's what influenced you. So when you began to have compassion, and that's why I love Jesus and his story so much in the New Testament, because he always came with non-judgment and compassion, no matter how screwed up they were. And then he challenged them to be better, didn't he? He didn't challenge them by saying you're wrong in this, or this. He didn't even get into any of that. Whether you're Republican or Democrat or independent or whatever it may be, he got into zero of that. He said, hey, here's your heart. Here's where it's at. And here's who you could be. Isn't that amazing, guys? Now, it's not for us to judge someone's heart, but we have the potential to watch somebody and see how they work and see the things that they do. And when we have coaching sessions and we bring them in, we share with them how that they can be a better person. That's what we talk about. We get into details and we say, Susan, you know what? I've noticed how creative you are. When we do things that are creative, you outshine. What you tell the marketing department and how you work with them is amazing. I just want you to know that, and I want to kind of help you. Maybe you can be the liaison between the marketing department and this department, and when there's more creative things that we can do, or ideas that you think of, let's work on those and do those. I love creativity, and I love how you bring that into the department. And it's something very, very special, and it's a gift that you have, Susan. And I want to cultivate that as your leader. How could I do that? That's asking a question. It's coaching. She's going to light up. She's going to beam up, isn't she? She's going to be so freaking excited all day long. She's going to love working for you and love working for the organization because you told her talents and abilities and challenged her to be better in those and to be self-aware enough to find where she can use that creativity in other things that she's going to do throughout her day. You just took something that was laying dormant, this gift that was laying dormant inside of Susan, and you put it and brought it into something that's amazing. And it's going to help the organization, period. It's going to help the organization. If you did that with every single person, if you set them down and coached them and told them how amazing they are and what their talents, specifically their talents and abilities are, and then casted a vision for them in what that looks like in your organization, I'm telling you, you wouldn't be able to control the work. There'd be so much getting done. There'd be so much unity and so much happiness and ownership and respect for you as a leader. That's what it takes. Jesus gave us the blueprint. He's the perfect example of a leader. Whether you like Jesus or not, or religion, strip the Christianity out, strip everything out, strip all the dogma, and just, even if you don't like Jesus, just look at him as a person that was amazing in what he did. Now I have a spiritual podcast that I get into Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Kabbalah, whatever you want to call it, aliens and alien teachings. I get into all this. If that's something that you're interested in, I know you guys, if you're interested in self-awareness, you're probably interested in spiritual practices. You can download that. That's at higherdensityliving.com. So you can just go to higherdensityliving.com, or you can look it up on Apple or podcast. And I encourage you to subscribe to that if that's something that you're interested in. But I want you guys to know, take this eclipse and look at it as an example to be self-aware. Any major event that happens in society, any news that you get, take a perspective of evolutionary psychology, what that looks like. Take a perspective of how you can, as a leader, practice self-awareness with that. And then put vision, put a positive spin on it. If it needs to be something that's like a war or something like that, and people are nervous, have a conversation on it. Let people open up and talk about it. Let people know that there's going to be disagreements. There's going to be people on all sides, and we're fine with that. I'm going to do an episode pretty soon on as we get closer to elections and stuff like that, because I want you as a leader to be able to understand how you can be self-aware with that, how you can not take a side, how you can let people know that they can be respected and believe all different types of things, whether they're far left, far right, left, center, right, whatever it may be. Libertarian, anarchist, Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter, the label. What matters is that you're respecting that person for doing the job that they're set out to do, and you're their leader. So that means respecting them, honoring them. You don't have to agree with everything, but you should be flexible enough that they probably have a good idea, whether you like it or not. Every position, there's good in every single position. You can find it. Find that and share that with them. Say, hey, I may not agree with everything in your beliefs, but you're an anarchist, and here's what I like about that. Ask ChatGPT to give you the good points of anarchism, the good points of liberalism, the good points of conservatism. Find those. Focus on those. Find agreement. Always find unity, guys. Study these things out. It's awesome. I want you guys to have an amazing day. Be self-aware leaders.
Thank you for tuning in to the Self-Aware Leader Podcast with host Jason Rigby. We hope this episode has inspired you to unleash your full potential and embrace your inner leadership. By expanding your consciousness, you can transform your mind, body, and soul and become the remarkable leader you were always meant to be. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with your loved ones and help us expand our community. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to having you join us again on the Self-Aware Leader Podcast.